Everyone is trying to become a IT-focused, IT-first, IT-enabled organisation to deliver more value. So that's really what we're trying to stress to our customers is you need to start to factoring in that value delivered to you from IT into how you're defining your success in the cloud. And so rather than looking at, say, we're spending this much on the cloud, you should be looking at where the value is.
That was Tom Monk, Director of Cloud Product Management at a company called Navisite. And today, he's going to help me demystify the worlds of FinOps frameworks and automating reserved instances. Because in today's episode, we're going to delve into these topics that are at the forefront of most C-suite conversations. And of course, by that, I mean how to achieve cost savings when migrating and managing business operations in the cloud. And Tom has a wealth of expertise, so hopefully today we'll explore three critical areas together: the FinOps framework, automating DevOps processes, and the benefits of automating reserved instances in the cloud. So whether you are a business leader wondering how you're going to reconcile finance and cloud expenditures, or tech enthusiast or IT worker that's interested in cutting-edge strategies, we're going to deliver so much value today. So let's demystify the complex aspects of cloud cost management and navigate its intricacies together. So buckle up and hold on tight so I can beam your ears all the way to the UK, where you can sit down with me and Tom as we talk about all this and much more. So a massive warm welcome to the show. Can you tell everyone listening a little about who you are and what you do?
Great. Thanks for having me today. It's really awesome to be here. My name is Tom Monk. I'm Senior Director of Product Management at Navisite. Navisite's a managed service provider and professional services organisation. We've kind of focused on the digital transformation needs of the mid-market. We provide a whole heap of services in that space, but got a real focus on cloud adoption, cloud migration, and then your kind of a little niche within that of enterprise and legacy workloads.
Well, it's a pleasure to have you on the podcast. There's so much I want to talk with you about today. One of the things I always try and do every single day is demystify some of the buzzwords that people might be hearing about in tech. And one of the things I want to talk about today is FinOps. For those people listening that are unfamiliar with the term, can you explain exactly what FinOps framework is and how it actually helps bridge the gap between finance and IT? Because huge topic right now, isn't it?
It's one of those buzzwords, isn't it? It's funny, you hear it all over the place at the moment. Really, it's a FinOps framework, and FinOps is really just a kind of a set of policies, working practices, way of thinking that's designed to help control and measure and understand cloud spend. And what that framework does is it should feed into your operational processes and your architectural principles. That means you understand the value and the cost and of the choices you make when operating in the cloud. And as you start to integrate those into your operational processes, that can be around your standard operational procedures in the cloud, kind of maintenance tasks, that kind of thing. All of your DevOps processes, which obviously we know lots of organizations use today, as well as all of those kind of things as well. And then in terms of bridging a gap, well, that's exactly what it does. You know, what your FinOps team will be is a group of cloud experts who help finance better understand the cloud and how you're spending your money in the cloud. You know, finance teams are used to that kind of traditional model of IT spend where you have those peaks and troughs around upgrade time, hardware renewal, hardware replacement, you know, projects, all of those kind of things, and then reverting back to a kind of flat spend level. And what we find with customers using the cloud is that they don't really have that kind of model anymore. You have those ups and downs, those troughs and those spikes of spend, but then you'll also have those will vary, and then you'll also have this probably steady climb, and there may be a little bit of a drop, and it will just be very variable and very volatile. And often it takes finance a little bit of time, finance teams to get a little bit of time to get their head around that kind of way of working, and the FinOps team will help them to better understand that, better process that information so they can do all the things that they need to do around forecasting, budgeting, and understanding where their spend is going.
And spend is so important right now. And DevOps operations are table stakes for an optimized cloud-based business. But can you provide any specific examples of common DevOps processes that maybe should be automated to help maximize cost efficiency?
When you're talking about automation in the cloud, really, it really should be as much as possible. And, as organizations look to leverage DevOps more and more, we help them with that automation process as we work with our customers. We normally start with those quite kind of generic tasks initially around DevOps. So that would be things like automating build and deployment, and then unit testing before kind of expansion, and maybe some kind of automated regression testing. And then once those kind of things are in place, then you can look at your your standard operational procedures around those kind of sysadmin maintenance type tasks that you will do in the cloud that, can automate those. And then you can move on to your higher value automation, which is where you're kind of probably actually leveraging some of your FinOps kind of policies, automating some of those or factoring those into your automating tasks. So that could be enforced tagging strategy around the assets you deploy, or maybe some policies around how you build. So maybe some rules around how you architect and using certain types of services or not using certain types of regions within the cloud environment, before maybe automation of entire test process and those kind of things. But really, as much as possible and as far as you can take it, really.
I guess it is true that reserved instances can offer cost-saving benefits, but it's also important to highlight it might be a new concept for some. So can you just expand on what reserved instances are too? I don't want to lose anyone here, and why they also represent a significant opportunity for cost reduction in cloud services.
We find when we're dealing with customers, they're a key question and a key thing that comes back to. But if we can probably take a little moment to kind of broaden out that topic a little bit, what we often find is cloud providers have the model, which is a pretty tried and tested model across multiple industries, which is if you make a kind of commitment to them, they'll provide you their services at a lower rate. So if you commit to some kind of capacity usage, they'll reward you with a lower cost for that. So, and there's multiple ways that you can do that within the cloud environments with the hyperscalers, and they're kind of tiered, they're kind of building blocks on top of each other. It starts off with these kind of enterprise agreements, where it's just kind of company-wide agreements with a hyperscaler. So we're going to commit to spending, X amount over Y years. And, they'll, if you can make that commitment, they'll reward you with a kind of percentage off your consumption. Then next tier of that is you can get these service level plans, which is, we're going to spend this amount of money on one of your PaaS services or within your virtual machine services or something like that. And then you get down to reserved instances, reservation type level, where you're saying, we need so many instances of these type of VMs. We want, 20 certain size. And you can make those commitments, and then they'll reward you with a discount on those. But when we work with our customers, that's often a common question for us. Like, we're not sure about our spend. We know it's out of control. When they say out of control, what they really mean is we don't know where some of our money's going, and we're getting questions, and the kind of question is, right, let's try and bring it down. And that's not necessarily what they really want to focus on. But as we get into those conversations about reserving capacity, what we always look to do with customers is start to optimize initially, because you don't want to commit on an unoptimized environment. As you start to optimize and monitor and measure your spend, start to bring that down to a sustained level, and then you get to a position where you can commit. And then we often help organizations in understanding the best way that they can commit, because depending on the nature of the workload, the type of workload, one of those three different kind of strategies potentially may be better suited for what you're trying to achieve. So we often find that we will suggest to a customer, an element of enterprise agreements, an element of service-based plans, and then maybe some reserve instances as well, to get them to that probably sort of 70% coverage around the commitment. And then you've got maybe 30% of your environment that's not covered by a commitment. And that will be an environment that's really variable, in terms of its consumption of cloud resources. It's very, irregular workload patterns on all those kind of things. And then really once you're dealing with that kind of final 30% of your spend, then you're getting into the kind of the more, the more fiddly tasks, the more complicated tasks around maybe, automating some scaling into your environment, bringing in some, workload schedule. And then there's also an option for some customers to automate their reserved instance trading. So one of the things that the hyperscalers allows you to do is if you purchase a reservation, you can sell it back to the hyperscaler and they'll allow you to then, they'll pass it on, sell it on to another company, say, using the cloud, which allows you to trade on the market your reserved instances no longer need to use. So you can do that, you can work that like any kind of financial market, and you can potentially, consume resources at a lower spend. So we've seen lots of customers take advantage of that through automating that process, even with third-party vendors or with their own custom-built solution.
And when talking about measuring cost savings and measuring spend, I'm so glad you brought it up, because you can't improve what you don't measure. And when companies transition to the cloud, I'm curious, are there any particular key performance indicators that they should be tracking to ensure that their investments are achieving those desired cost savings? Because there's a big focus on this stuff right now, isn't there? Especially because of the economic climate.
Absolutely. And that's often what people come to us first off with is like as I said just a moment ago, we need to reduce our spend. Our spend's out of control. And like I say, it's not necessarily the case they need to reduce their spend. What they're really what their problem is that they don't understand their spend, and they can see it creeping up because they're consuming more cloud services every month and they feel like it's out of control and it's kind of spiraling, but it might not necessarily be the case. So we always sort of, we're going to contradict myself a little bit because we've been talking about reducing costs quite a bit, but really you shouldn't just count those dollars. You shouldn't just look at that dollar spend because you're only taking into account one consideration of how you're using the cloud and be in that kind of old-fashioned mindset of just like a cost of doing business. And we all talk about, and I said it earlier on, the digital transformation journey. Everyone is trying to become a IT-focused, IT-first, IT-enabled organization to deliver more value. So that's really what we're trying to stress to our customers is you need to start to factoring in that value delivered to you from IT into how you're defining your success in the cloud. And so rather than looking at, say, we're spending this much on the cloud, you should be looking at where the value is. So, we spent this much in the cloud, but we were able to bring in these savings through by, no longer using a third-party company to support us in the business. We're able to now bring that in-house, use some automation, be able to deliver it ourselves at a much lower cost, or potentially, increasing revenue in the company by building, shipping, delivering products quicker, meaning that you're able to get ahead of your competition and improve your revenue.
And of course, while technical aspects often dominate the cloud migration conversation, cultural obstacles always seem to get in the way and always blindside leaders. So what cultural obstacles do companies need to be aware of, especially when implementing frameworks like FinOps and DevOps, etc.?
Yeah, I mean, DevOps is a great example, right? Because any of us who have made that transition from traditional IT into the kind of cloud-driven IT world, when you first move into that cloud-based way of working, it's really exciting because you can't believe all the power that you have and all of the freedom you have to go and build as an engineer. And traditional kind of delivery of IT, for very good reason, has lots of processes involved in it. So if you want to, start a new project, you'll have to go to finance to get the money to go and buy a new server. Legal will have to execute some contracts for you. You need to work with operations to go and install your server, you'll rack your server. With cloud, all of that's gone, right? And then all that happens is, you've got the freedom to go and build, and then you get the bill at the end of the month. And that's very liberating. But then with that, there comes the drawbacks, which is, not necessarily just about spend, but it's about, making sure that engineers are, making good decisions when they're building in the cloud. And then bringing in these frameworks like DevOps and FinOps, it kind of restricts the power a little bit. And it can be culturally, if you've gone from, kind of quite constrained working environment, traditional IT into cloud with lots of freedom, and then you lay these frameworks on top, FinOps and DevOps and the sort to kind of add some kind of guidance and guardrails, it can feel like you're being restricted, and you can feel like we're going back to the old ways. But, all of those processes and principles are there to guide and support developers and engineers to make better choices and ultimately to deliver value. And that's where the excitement comes, right? It's not just about the excitement from being able to do whatever you want to do when you're building new products. It's the excitement from bringing value, and those frameworks just support that. So you have to have that conversation with your teams, and we find that we have to have those conversations when we work with our partners and when we support organizations adopting the cloud. That's one of those key cultural conversations that we have to have.
And the cloud service providers market is incredibly crowded right now. So I'm curious, from someone right in the heart of it all, how do different cloud service providers compare, especially when it comes to the ease and effectiveness of implementing cost-saving strategies like FinOps or automating reserved instances?
Well, I mean, Navisite as an organization, we're cloud agnostic, and we hold all kinds of, kind of certifications and partnership status with pretty much all of the main cloud providers. And, and we kind of get these kind of questions all the time. And the honest answer is that every one of the cloud providers has a really great platform to support companies building great solutions in a very innovative way, but also being able to factor in controls and support and understanding around cost optimization. And really, it just comes down to how you implement and build on those cloud providers, and having those good tools, processes, frameworks to support your delivery on the cloud is what really gives you the real value, and it's really what's going to make you successful, rather than choosing one cloud over the other, in our experience.
And as you said, Navisite is cloud agnostic, but you do have a lot of expertise in the strengths and weaknesses and the future direction of the cloud. So with rapid advancements in cloud technologies and 2024 just being a few months away, how can companies better future-proof their cloud strategies to continue achieving cost savings over that long term into the future?
Yeah, it's a good question. And, we're never more than a few months from the next disruptive technology, right? We've been through so many, I can't even think of them, and we're right in the middle of Gen AI now, and something's around the corner, right? And no one knows what it is until it gets here. But we get, bring this all the time. And when organizations come to us, and I'm thinking of a customer I worked with very recently, looking for guidance around their cloud strategy. They were a very, mature user of the cloud, and they just needed a bit of help. They just felt like, we need some external information and to kind of feed into our practices and those kind of things. And what we try to do with organizations like that is we really want to, set them up for success after after our conversations with them have finished. And one of the things that we always, really like to do to help customers to be in good hands when they move off on their own is to support them in building out a cloud center of excellence. So we support loads of customers in doing that. And what a cloud center of excellence is really just a group of representatives from across a business. And it's not just IT focused. It's, delegates from, depending on your kind of model of company, it could be sales, marketing, all kinds of external groups, as well as the usual folks you'd expect around IT and finance and those kind of things. And they're coming together to help inform the cloud strategy, and also to kind of be internal advocates for the cloud and kind of make sure that the wider organization understands the cloud. But one of the key tasks that that organization would deliver is ongoing assessment of the landscape, ongoing kind of review of new services, new practices, new trends out in the industry, bring those to the group to kind of review, discuss, discover, understand, and then you can start to, experiment, understand these new services, new products, build out your proof of concepts to then, if they are a good fit and they can, improve your way of working, you can then take them back out to the wider organization and continue to add value. And we support organizations in building out those centers of excellences. And for a few of our customers, we continue to participate them kind of at an ongoing kind of external party as a piece of guidance for them.
Well, I cannot thank you enough for taking the time to come on here, share your insights and demystify the worlds of FinOps frameworks, reserved instances and automating DevOps. But as a little thank you, I'm going to see if there's something we can do for you now. Let's see if we can manifest something together. Now, some of the biggest names in business, VC funding and tech have either been guests or listened to this podcast. So if I was to ask you, is there one person you'd love to have a private breakfast or lunch with? Who would it be and why? And hopefully he or she might just listen to this.
Well, I think there's a pretty good chance that this person could be listening because they, like you say, they've been a guest before. And I'm sure this is actually probably I don't know if you track these kind of things, but I'm sure this is probably the most frequent answer you get for a guest or from a guest, for the person they'd like to meet with. But for me, it's got to be Gary V. I think in addition to picking Gary, I think I'd like to have a breakfast. I don't know if that is part of the question, but, for me personally, got a very busy life. I'm a family man. So there's nothing more indulgent and rare than a nice leisurely breakfast. So a breakfast with Gary V, just to find a bit more about him and what motivates him. I know everyone knows a lot about Gary. He's very present online, isn't he? And we know a lot about him, but to get any more insights about what motivates him, to kind of throw a couple of ideas his way, see what he thinks, and also really just to hope a bit of his energy and enthusiasm rubs off on me for my next project would be a great opportunity that I would grab with both hands.
Yeah, that's a great answer. I think you're the third or fourth person to mention Gary V. And I did have the privilege. I met him backstage in Vegas with just him and D-Rock. And then I also interviewed him in Armenia, of all places, in front of a lot of his fans. And the craziness that follows him, I don't know how he keeps saying throughout it all, but he just seems to have so much energy for anyone. And he will sit down and spend a bit of time and drop those value bombs, as he always We'll throw it out into the ether and see what we can manifest together. But for anyone listening wanting to find out more about Navisite and the work that you're doing, where would you like to point everyone listening?
Yeah, so if you want to find out a bit more about us and me and what we do, navisite.com is the place to go. That's got plenty of resources about our services, about our culture, our values, case studies, all of those kind of good things. Yeah, navisite.com is the place to go.
Fantastic. Well, love chatting with you today, especially learning more about why you believe companies should start by understanding 3 key areas: adopting a FinOps framework, automate reserved instances, and automating common DevOps processes too. We covered so much in a short amount of time. I'd love to stay in touch with you and maybe get you back on in the future, see how things are evolving, and you can also tell me all about that breakfast with Gary V. But thanks for joining me today.
Great. Thanks for having me.
And that wraps up today's conversation with Tom Monk from Navisite. And I think we traversed the landscapes of FinOps, DevOps and automation, shedding light on the avenues for cost optimization in the cloud. But despite all that, I think one thing was abundantly clear. The cloud offers incredible opportunities, but these come with its own set of challenges and complexities, from cultural hurdles to strategic measures. That path to cloud proficiency is multifaceted. So if you're listening and you're on your cloud journey, I hope this conversation will serve as a guide for aligning your financial and technical orbits, and hopefully Tom's insights underscored the imperative of fostering conversations and continuous learning for successful cloud adoption. But for any more information, I'll add the Navisite to our website and everything, so you can find more details there. And if you've got anything you'd like to talk about, if you want to come on this podcast, if you want to share your journey, your experiences, or just ask me a question, whatever it is, hook.com, Twitter, LinkedIn, Instagram, just at Neil C. Hughes. But that's it today. So I'll be back again tomorrow with another guest and another topic. But thanks for listening as always. And until next time, don't be a stranger.